Okay, we are back together again. Gerry McCants and Sonja Rollins Tucker, and I'm Angela Jones. We were together for the Power of the Black Dollar, for the Delta's Think Like a Boss series, and we had some remaining questions, so we're going to go through those. And the first question is, what is the one thing that we can do as a community to start to build wealth, home ownership, start a business?
I think the first thing you have to do is you have to organize and determine what those things are so you can put together a plan that will help you stay focused and accomplish some of the goals that you have for wealth building and home ownership.
And I absolutely agree. Organization is very, very important and actually sitting down and making a plan as a community as to where you're going to start. And having, really just sitting together and having these meetings and being consistent is where we actually start, consistently focusing on wealth building strategies.
And also realizing how important it is to support each other, like other communities. And, we talked about how many times or how long the Black Dollar stays in different communities. And of course, ours is the shortest. So, we have to think about doing how we can do business with each other. The next question, being a recent grad of VSU and frequently going back to my alma mater, how can I advise the current students to start a bank account at the credit union and start building their wealth early?
So I would actually talk to Virginia State. That's the beauty of having small minority owned credit unions and banks, is that the credit union and bank presidents and officers are happy to see and talk to the students in reference to financial literacy. That's something that they want to accomplish. So I would have a conversation with the president or one of the officers in there, and they probably would do something special just for this. Probably there's programs already. And so that would be a really nice push, encouraging the students to maybe even give them an idea on how to get the students to come over, how to attract students, what do the students want that they could do for them to make sure that they're marketing to the students. And young people are the best people to come in and tell us, tell them. And I'm sure they would be open to that conversation.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead, Angela.
Oh, no, you go ahead.
I agree. I think the beauty of Virginia State, just like many HBCUs, is it's a self-contained community. That is an ecosystem where, at least for most HBCUs, at least 80 to 90% of the students are African American. And you can be creative by almost mandating, in a sense, I don't want to say mandate, but making sure that everybody who is registering for class, make sure they have a savings account or a checking account on campus. That should be a part of the curriculum. Just a creative opportunity to have some creative strategies and ideas to push that along.
And making sure students know the difference between a credit union and a bank, and how supporting that credit union is supporting the school and in turn supporting them. Yeah, I think that's important. And who doesn't want to be an owner, right?
Right.
Exactly.
Okay. So the next question, I understand the interest of creating Black Wall Street areas throughout the US, but with the climate of resistance against Black education today, do you think we would also be hit with creating areas of segregation and are not being inclusive of other nationalities when we are trying to create areas of Black wealth, business, and success?
my first response would be, no, we're not being exclusive. Really what we're doing is creating a epicenter or ecosystem in which we can accumulate wealth, resources, and knowledge, so we'll be able to negotiate and do business with other communities. I mean, everybody wants a trading partner outside of its own ecosystem, whether it's domestically or globally. So I think we've got to start home first to make sure we build a capital base and a wealth base and a knowledge base so we can be able to do business and compete with some of these other communities.
I absolutely agree. We statistically, it shows. The statistic shows that the Black community has a huge wealth gap. What that means is that other nationalities have already gotten together and communicated. I think they're one of the things that keeps us or other nationalities together is language. We don't have our own language. We lost that when we came over as slaves. We lost our own language, and so therefore there is and us breaking up as families and being all over. So that is something that we should not worry about. That is not what we're not creating anything that's that any other race or nationality should have a issue or problem with, because we lost so much of our wealth because we were separated. And so we're just trying to get back together to build together as a community, just like every other nationality has done.
All right. The next question is, are you all familiar with Metropolitan Federal Credit Union in Suffolk? It is a Black federal credit union started by the church next door about 70 years ago.
Well,
I know I was not familiar with that at all.
Yeah, we just did our homework on it,
Yeah.
and yeah, this Baptist church, Metropolitan Baptist Church, started this credit union, which is fantastic. And everybody should mimic that or model that in some of the churches across the country.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Can you share thoughts on investing knowledge in our children? Can you share thoughts on investing knowledge in our children, setting them up financially, teaching them early, avoiding debt, establishing credit, life insurance, etc.? How do we best prepare them?
So I'm just going to take the lead on that question and say that we best prepare them by being the best prepared ourselves. And so that your children are going to copy what you're doing. So first of all, make sure that you have set up your budget. You are in saving and you are investing. And then you can show your children what you are doing as well. That's a good way of doing it. Also, as young as 3 years old, you can start a bank account or savings account at your favorite credit union or bank and start taking your child in there to make actual deposits into their accounts. Children love looking at statements, opening up the statements to see how much money they have in their account. And it starts a connection. It starts connecting them to money and saving. So that's a good idea. And once again, you can start as early as 3 years old by opening up an account. And every month, that's your little trip together to go deposit some money into this account. Let's look at how it's going, and even showing them online how it's what it looks like. So those are some of the things. As they get older, then you want to have discussions. You want to encourage them to take classes if there's financial literacy classes. And you want to start discussing, maybe at the dinner table, every once in a while, we should get together and start talking about money within our own family unit. And talk about mistakes you made. That's how I talk to my children. I'm a financial advisor, but I didn't always know all this stuff. I talk to my kids about the mistakes I made and also how to make sure and correct that and what I'm doing now. So those are, I think that's a really one of the ways to best prepare them.
I think that's an excellent point, Sonja. I think the other thing too is you want to make it fun for kids, children, and keep it simple. For an example, Monopoly game. I mean, I didn't have one when I was a kid. I wish I did, because that teaches you how to, manage money, buy property, invest. It teaches you a lot about money and about the economy. And so there are a number of videos and video games out here that focus on financial literacy that we need to have, that our kids have access to.
That's true. When you mentioned Monopoly, it made me think about my daughter had a game called Mall Tycoon. It was a video game, and online she could like set up a mall and hire people and have people come into the stores, and they had all kinds of really interesting things going on in there.
Yeah. So, if your parents are not, we're all busy, and I don't have children, so, I can't tell you how to manage your kids, but, based on my conversations with parents, and even with dealing with students who are interns, you need somebody who can be there for them in order to guide them and keep it simple, because sometimes we make it so difficult for them to really be able to express themselves and communicate back with some of the issues they may be having as it relates to money or school or whatever it is. And just make it, easy to have the conversation, and simple to have the conversation, and easy for them to reach out to you when they're having these issues.
Mm-hmm. So they can feel comfortable with money when they get older.
Exactly.
How do you think the Black community can build financial literacy? I think many African Americans want to build wealth, but don't know how.
Well, I think the first thing is attending information and sessions such as this, educational forums, reading, that's on an individual basis. And I think that we talked about organizing. I think that many of us may attend organizations, whether it's a Black church, whether it's a fraternity and sorority, organizations that you belong to, and started having the conversation on building Black wealth, and talking about the different strategies to go about that.
Exactly. It should be a part of our culture. And that means we really have to implement some things that will, make us easily have the conversation and adapt to financial literacy and money and spending and saving and budgeting. I mean, Black folk, a lot of us go to church every Sunday or Saturday, or how many times a week you go. That should be one of the things you talk about weekly. We talk about everything else. Talk about tithing, but we don't talk about how much money you need to save to put in your pocket, in your bank account, in your savings account, how you need to invest that money. We got to talk about more than just one thing. I think that's part of the challenge. And even with our community centers and recreational centers, with kids and people go all the time, they sports. I mean, make that part of it. As you're doing all these other things athletically, take 10 to 15 minutes out of your time just to talk about that, something on a financial, in a financial environment, talking about money, talking about saving. How much money do you have a job? I mean, you thinking about working this year? All those things we need to be talking about as a people in order to move us forward. Are you thinking about, what are you thinking about doing? You want to be an entrepreneur? You want to own a business? I mean, what do you like? What are you passionate about? We got to have these conversations with our people. I don't think we have enough of it. It's almost like a one-way conversation, and then we forget about it because we got all these other things going on. But we gotta talk to people.
Yeah, and that also made me think about the FDIC has a program called Money Smart. And you can do the train the trainer version where you can, use it at your church. You can, to help other people at your church or other organizations can use this. It's different modules that you can go through. I don't remember exactly how long the program is, but yeah, it's very detailed.
And Sonja, you might be there to elaborate. I'm thinking Angela kind of alluded to it. It doesn't matter how much money you have. You can have $1. I mean, some people we're afraid to talk about it because we may not have what we call wealth. We may not have all this money.
Right.
If you got $10 or $15 or $50 or 10 cents, work with that.
Work with it.
Yeah, you have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And I heard somebody compare it to like saving and spending. And they were talking about like they look at when they go somewhere and they have to spend $10, that's like they're a brick in their financial house that they're building. So, you might say, oh, it's only $10, but then you say, oh, $10 is a whole brick, $20 is 2 bricks,
Exactly.
I want to get this house built as quickly as possible.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I always too, you made a very good point, Gerry, about people thinking that you got to have all this money. So one of the things I always say now is you just manage your money for the return on your life. So it doesn't matter the amount. It's just how are you managing it so it's benefiting the return on your life. And so that's just a kind of a whole paradigm. And when you look at it, it's like, okay, let me manage my money, whatever money I have, let me manage it for a good return on my life of whatever am I doing with whatever it is that I want to do with my life. So that's just one of the things, we go to psychological behavior.
Right.
Which
exactly.
is really 80% of it.
Mhm.
Psychology.
So is there an advantage in fixed equity loan versus conventional loan?
So I believe that the person asking this question, let me just go through and just talk about fixed equity loans and fixed equity lines. It's usually once you've already purchased a house, you might be able to take out an equity in your house. So let's say your house, you bought it at $100,000 is now worth $50,000, and you have $150,000. I'm sorry. So you have $50,000 that you could pull out and get a equity loan, and it could be fixed. So depending on interest rates, and right now interest rates have inched up, right? Even though they're not at the highest that they've ever been. So it just depends on what your the mortgage you have on right now. If you back a few years ago, if you were able to get a 3% interest rate on your mortgage and you wanted to take money out at $50,000, you probably can't get anything under 7% right now on that $50,000 purchase. So if we're talking about what's fixed, if a fixed versus a variable rate, then depending on the conditions of the interest rate, the current interest rates, whatever that is, that's how you determine whether you want to get something fixed or you want to get a variable. Okay. Right now, because interest rates we're in an interest rate environment that's going up, it's very possible that fixed might be better, but it really depends on your circumstances and if I understand what you're asking. A conventional loan, when you're talking about getting a mortgage, there's kind of 3 different loans. A conventional loan is going to the bank and just getting a loan from a traditional bank. Then there's something called a FHA loan, which when you get a mortgage, a FHA usually is a little bit nicer and they're more helpful to folks who might have a lower credit score. Also, they allow you to have a lower down payment, and it's actually given out by the federal, it's a federal government agency. So it's a little bit more lenient than a conventional loan. And then there's a VA loan, which means that you're a veteran. So if you served in the armed forces or something like in one of the armed forces, you are eligible to get a VA loan, which usually, once again, allows you to have a lower credit score, no down payment. And so there's some things within it that might be better. So it's going to depend on your personal situation and what you're eligible for, and also what the current environment is as far as interest rates are concerned.
Okay, yeah, I just went to a program this week where the White House is talking about making home ownership more attainable. So they're making the FHA loans even more attractive
Exactly.
and less expensive.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to, because interest rates are going up. So it's a double-edged sword, right? So if you had a good credit score a year or two ago, you were able to get mortgages at 2.9%, right? So now everybody's going to start not buying houses. So what do? You start getting the folks, and allow the folks who don't have a 680 credit score to get into a house. I think now you can probably get a house around 620 credit score, but you might pay 8%, which still is not the highest interest rates ever been. So,
Right. I remember those days.
so do I. My first house, it was 8.5%.
What are some savings methods we can use to build up our savings accounts?
Well, one would be, sometimes it's good to have fun with it. So you just want to make it a habit and be consistent. One of the things that I do is every Monday is a no spend day. And so for that, what that means is that on Sunday, I have to make sure that I have looked at my bank accounts. I have gas in my car, and I know that I'm going to take lunch, or I got to have something prepared, because on Monday, I'm not going to buy anything. I'm going to cook. I'm going to, even the night before, I make my coffee, making sure everything's done and laid out, because on Monday, I know that I'm not going to spend any money on anything, or try not to, right? It has to be a real emergency. But it's just become a habit that Monday is a no spend day. And once you start making it a habit, you just kind of do it. And so sometimes just having fun with it and doing something consistently. The other thing would be just automatically setting up on paydays that a certain amount of your money goes into a savings account that you've already set up. And so if you don't get to see it, then you won't spend it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point. One of the things that I have to remember that, Sonja, in terms of, so if I'm taking somebody to lunch, I'm not spending any money today.
But no, seriously, that's what I said. I said, today is my no spend day. It's my no spend day. I can't do lunch.
Exactly. You can, I don't know if people still do mutual funds and things of that nature, but I have one, and it just gets taken out of my account every month. I don't, whether it's $25 or $50 or whatever it is, so you don't have to see it. Just have it automatically drafted out of your account. It goes into a fund, and people still do that. I don't know how that works anymore, but I do it.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Another quick way to save is start buying generic rather than the brand names. Sometimes,
right.
Sometimes that works.
Right.
Yeah. Also, cutting back on subscription services. Like you got Netflix. I wrote an article recently about, can we afford to be entertained? Like that's something to think about before you sit down. There's so much to do. Can we really afford to be entertained?
I agree. Yeah.
All right. So the next question, what are some resources we can use to help us learn more about how the stock market operates?
So one would be a resource that I believe we sent out. It's Every Income. It's a free app that I have, and I made it available on the call. You might want to go in there. There's a lot of modules out there in reference to investing. The other thing is going to a site called Stockpile. That's STOCKPILE.com. It's a great uh, uh, it's a great place to go and for family investing even. And it allows you to buy gift cards to give your children or anyone. We're always buying gifts for people. Why don't we give a gift that continues to grow, an asset? And so you can actually buy gift cards to give gifts of stock. But they also have different ways to teach you about investing, and it allows you to look at different stocks. It allows you to pull it up and talk about what the company is, what the company does. You don't have to, you could even buy fractional shares. You know, a lot of us get afraid that Google, you know, because it's so expensive, but you can buy a fractional share. So you can buy $10 of a stock, and you can continue to do that. And so that's a good way for you to start understanding how it actually works.
All right. So where does a person over 50 start over to build when there has been irresponsibility with income, divorce, or death that has impacted your future?
You want me to take that one?
Yes.
Look, I've been through everything in life you can think about. So I understand it's an emotional time, but you really need to seek help of a professional, somebody who understands and can really evaluate your situation, whatever it is. You know, you may have lost money through a divorce, you may have lost a house, you may have lost everything, even as a business person. But you can always sit down with someone who understands your condition and put things in place or put things in a perspective so you can put a plan together to move out of that situation. So, you know, life is not over because you've gone through a situation like that. Most of us have. I know I have. And so I would say, exactly, trust me.
Most of us have, especially if you were a business owner, you know, you learn over and over in a business.
Yeah.
In order to be successful, that means you failed a couple of times. So
absolutely.
You learn that
you
can, and then going through a divorce, death definitely impacts your future. And so you're actually the person that could probably teach the class, you know, that person you're actually the person that can teach this class.
Yeah.
But having someone to talk to, first of all, the psychology of getting over it and letting go of shame. And that's what I talk to, especially in our community. We are just shameful. We feel shame. And so that means that we hide. We don't want to discuss it. And the thing is, the person sitting next to you, left or right, has gone through something.
Yes.
Okay. Gone through something.
Exactly.
And if they haven't, then he really can't teach you anything.
Right.
So that's number one. And talk to, sometimes you do have to talk to several folks, especially in the financial advice. Most folks who look like us in this business are very understanding, because as a community, we've struggled and we've gone through barriers and challenges. So we understand. And so you may want to talk to a couple of folks as far as how to lay out your foundation for rebuilding your wealth.
Excellent.
All right. So would you say the first step is talking to a financial advisor?
I think the first step, that's one, but I think you need to gather yourself.
Yeah, I think a therapist is a good step. Because I think that it's hard to talk to a financial advisor until you've kind of gathered, like you said, emotionally gotten yourself together to take the next step to talk to a financial advisor.
Yeah. Get away from all the stuff. I had to do that. I said, look, let me just get away for a week or two, whatever, however long it takes you to do that. Get your mind together, get yourself emotionally together so you can, be able to have that conversation with whoever you're trying to work with. But you gotta have a peace of mind when you're having that conversation.
Okay, so the next question, are there any financial literacy books you would recommend for children or teenagers?
So I have a couple that I'm going to say, and one of them is going to be Black Wealth, Teaching Your Child Financial Literacy by Dr. S. Bowe. And then there's a book called Making Money with Jacob and Gerry. Did I say that right? Yeah, Jacob and Gerry. So those are two. And I'm going to encourage parents to also take advantage of some of the resources on YouTube and see what's out there as well. We kind of talked about some other things a little bit earlier, but I think those are two good places to start.
Yeah, I sent over a link, and Angela, we might be able to send that link. There's a number of books by Black authors. I would also say, even when you're looking at Black newspapers and Black resource guides, like the Black Pages I published and Angela's newspaper, there are financial people or persons who advertise in these newspapers and publications that you need to do business with. I mean, that's the first stop for a lot of people. And then they may have some books that they may want to recommend that you read or utilize as well. So let's not forget about that. That keeps the money in the community, keeps us focused on what's going on in our community. It also gives us a chance to support our Black newspapers and our Black publications as well in our communities.
Oh yeah, that's what I like to hear. So this question is specifically for Gerry. How did you go about finding out the percentage of awards going to Black firms in Greensboro and addressing it?
There's something called a disparity study that is conducted. I work with a firm called Griffin and Strong PC out of Atlanta. They did a disparity study in Greensboro, actually going into another one. Normally it's about 5 to 7 years, but in that disparity study, we evaluate all the procurement, purchasing, and all contracts that have been let during a 5 to 7 year period. All the data is there. We also have anecdotals. We talk to a lot of firms about, their experiences doing business or not doing business with a particular municipality or state government. And that information is there. You can do a public records request and ask about whatever industry, whether it's engineering, or whether it's water resources, whether it's goods and services, and find out, how much money did the city of Portsmouth awarding contracts from 2016 to 2022. And they should be to have that information on file, so it's accessible. So it's not hard to get. It's public spending. It's your tax dollars, so you should be to request, that data.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's public information. You mentioned resources and apps. Can you please share a few apps, resources that are useful for our youth?
So I think we're going to share the book link, of course, the app that I have. So I think we've kind of covered most of that.
Okay. What is the best advice for preparing financially and how to save thousands needed to purchase a home? Resources for obtaining these funds.
So I'm going to give one alternative resource that I know that years ago when I first started out, I'm talking about years ago when I first got married and when we first bought our first house, one of the things that we used was money out of our 401k. And I think I talked about this a lot about when you start working for a firm, if there is a retirement plan available for you to start putting money into, I encourage you to start doing that because the government allows you to make a withdrawal. That's one of the withdrawals that you do not get penalized for taking early, is using money from that for a down payment on a house. So that would be a one way to look at as an alternative other than just saving money up. The other thing is getting in touch with home ownership programs. There's a lot of CDFI. I know locally there's Southside Community Development Corporation that have grants available. They have classes. Really, they're really good, great programs. Help you with budgeting. And I know people who've gotten lots of money as down payment for houses. And so I would definitely look into some community organizations that help with doing that as a way to guide, one-on-one counseling to guide you to start home ownership.
Also, I think with the social justice push recently, some banks have also started doing that as well, trying to offer opportunities for minorities to purchase homes.
And a lot of times those banks will try to create some kind of relationship with a local organization, whether it's the NAACP or the Urban League or whoever it is. It could be a local CDFI as well, fraternities, sororities, community-based organizations, to talk about what are some of the opportunities that are on the table to do some of the things that we're talking about. NAACP should be at the forefront of this when it comes to economic development. They do have an economic development chair on all branch levels, state level as well. I know a lot of these big banks will contribute funding across the country that will help with that process. But here's an opportunity for you to get involved and really begin to really focus in on what's the most important thing that needs to be done when it comes to some of these funding opportunities, because a lot of times banks will tell you what they want, but that may not be what the community really needs. And so you got to have this real conversation with a lot of these professionals, banks included, CEOs, who are pushing initiatives that may not be the right thing for our community. I'll say that.
Okay, so the next question, where to start if we're interested in purchasing stock?
Where to start if you're interested in purchasing stock? I'll still go back to stockpile.com as a place that you can start looking at, if you're interested in purchasing stock. You can also, again, get in touch with a local, preferably a African-American financial advisor who can give you some one-on-one guidance as to purchasing stock. Because there's some steps you should probably take in making sure that you're purchasing different stocks and investments. And understands when we say stocks, I include in that jargon, because I think lots of times people think when we say stocks, they're talking about individual stocks. I'm also including mutual funds and exchange traded funds, everything that you purchase in your retirement plan at work. So I always go back to, before it's fun to do it outside, but make sure you're purchasing, first of all, at work, wherever you work. Make sure you're participating in that retirement plan, because you are purchasing stocks when you participate in your retirement plan on work. They may call it mutual funds, but that is just a whole bunch of stocks, and that's packaged. And so I just want to be clear on, when we talk about individual stocks, I am also including mutual funds, exchange traded funds, and even bonds. It's just investments that are going to grow, or assets, investing in assets. Maybe we should change the language, because I think sometimes people think that they're not already investing in stocks. But if you're investing in mutual funds at work, you are. So I would say, one, make sure you're investing at work in your retirement plan. Number two, stockpile.com is a great platform to start purchasing stocks. And number three, get in touch with a local financial advisor who is willing to help you explain how this is done.
Absolutely, Sanjay. I would also say that, and I forgot to mention an organization like the 200 plus men in Hampton Roads that has a number of professionals and people who can talk to this issue. And really, you have to begin to ask the question to HBCUs. What are we doing as it relates to financial literacy? And here's some of the things that you might want to consider in terms of providing information to the community, because that is a business. They do have professionals on staff. They have professionals on staff, and they may have a CDC or something like that on the community, a business center that needs to talk about this information that will have a significant impact in our community. And get your elected officials to provide more funding for these organizations.
Okay. With the likelihood of many of us not being able to benefit from student loan debt relief, what strategy would you recommend to balance managing households while building wealth?
We really have to take a really good look at your personal finances and your budget and how the student loan is going to impact your budget. And you really have to take the position to live below your means, because the only way to build wealth is to live below your means. So you have to make a decision and a commitment to yourself to really look at what your budget looks like and really look at how does living below my means going to be effective. And the other thing is, or you have to have the income. So you have to be able to generate the kind of revenue you need to, like I said, live below your means. That's the only way that it's gonna. That's the only strategy that I would recommend and know that's gonna work.
Right. I mean, you only have two sources of revenue or income that's going to come in as an individual, either from your job or from your business. And so whatever that business is, or whether you're selling real estate or you in the print industry or the service industry, and what kind of job you have, how much money you're making, based on your income versus your expenses. And you have to balance that, as Sonja stated earlier, because if you're only making $45,000, $50,000 a year, medium household income in Hampton Roads, I think is around $55,000, $60,000 for African Americans. I mean, you got a lot to think about, after you buy grocery, and if you got a mortgage or rent and whatever else you have to do, travel. I mean, you only have but so much left over to take care of a lot of things. So you either got to have another opportunity somewhere where you making some money or some more income, create a business or something that's going to give you the kind of quality of life and lifestyle you want to live, as an individual and as a family.
And I said, I always believe in multiple streams of income. So yeah,
Right.
business, your job. Also, people are getting very creative with how they make money. You can turn a hobby into a money-making opportunity. People are selling things online, on eBay, on Facebook Marketplace, things that are around the house that you don't need anymore. Also, people are doing things like renting out a room in their home for Airbnb. There's just so many different ways
And
that
people now, some of us may not like this question, but people are staying home. Sometimes it makes sense to, if mom and dad are okay with it and you are a responsible young adult, staying at home and devising a plan with your parents as to, here's my move out date, but I may need this help. And, is it okay for me to stay here? And be responsible, however, be respectable and responsible. You have to still pay rent or contribute to the household. But also let them be open as to, I'm building this to go to my next level. I have the student loan debt. That's one of the ways to look at it as well.
Yeah,
And remember, the federal government holds probably about 85% of all student loan debt. You need to let that sink in as you're talking to elected officials at the federal level. The government holds the note.
mhm.
Yep.
And you can also look into the different ways that you can get, you may think you're not eligible for student debt relief, but there are all sorts of programs. So I would definitely look into that. Okay. Okay, so the next question, how can you find a Black financial advisor you can trust?
So I will take that. I'll volunteer for that. Uh,
Call
so,
Sonja.
yeah, call me. Call Sonja. mymoneyispower.com. Just going up there and go to that website and you can book a free consultation with me, number one. But number two is there's an association of African American financial advisors. And so you can go to that website and there's a directory as well. And really it's about talking to folks, see who you feel comfortable with. Again, I was just at a conference yesterday at a church, and it was about 3 financial advisors, Black financial advisors, and we love on each other, and we love being in this business. Is a reason why we went into this business, because it's very, as is everything, very challenging. Because our net worth is not like other folks. Because so as when you're a Black person, that you already know that you're not going to have the $1 million client walking through the door every day. You might have one a year. And so you really talk about a hustle. You really there's a lot that you have to do. And so we are really, 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 I would say that at least 99% of us that are in this business are in it because we are so passionate about our communities building wealth. It's not necessarily about the money. So that's my recommendation, is to go onto that website and seek those folks out. And you can call me. I have no problem with you even calling me and saying, I'm able to deliver financial planning to anyone in the United States. However, if you live in a certain area, I probably know somebody in that area that I can refer to you. And I have no problem doing that as well.
Right. Are there places you would recommend going to learn how to invest in stocks? So I think we covered stocks quite a bit. I didn't mention before, there's stock simulators that you can like pretend trade and not use the actual money to get comfortable with trading. Did anyone else have anything they wanted to say about that?
Well, I did want to add to that. Again, as far as investing in stocks, I want people to understand as well that you want to have a foundation already built, meaning you want to have your 3 to 6 months of emergency funds already available in a savings account. So I always tell folks who come to me and say, I want to start investing. I say, you know what? Save $100 a month in a savings account and come back to me in 3 months. Let me see that bank account first. And let's talk about, your emergency, because what you don't want to do is start investing and the tires blow out on your car and now you got to sell the stock. So that there is some steps you want to take. And so I would say the simulation does work, and that's a really good way to do it, but always have your foundation built.
Okay.
So, Sonja, you might want to elaborate on this. I know I have a whole life policy where cash value is accumulating in that policy, and you can use that policy if you've got enough money in it to borrow against the policy to do some things if you need to.
Great way. That's another great way to save, but it takes time to build up in that policy. So just understand you got to have some patience, but that's another great way. You're still putting the money away. And not only are you have the cash value, but now you've also insured yourself. So now you've also protected your loved ones just in case something has happened to you. That's another great way. So there's lots of different ways to do it.
So you mentioned patience, Sanji. I think that's important with everything we're talking about. You know, you got to start somewhere. You got to start small and then, you know, work your way up. So
Yeah.
don't get frustrated.
Yeah.
How much money should one have to begin to invest with? What to invest in?
So there we go back again. You want to start, you can start as little as $10, $25 a month in investing. Once again, go look at stockpile.com. There's Robinhood, there's all these little places, but that's really for individual investing. I go back to, you know, have your foundation, make sure you have your savings account, make sure you're already investing at work. But that would count as that you're actually investing. And then the question as to what should I be investing in? It's a learning curve. But when you just think about, look at the stuff, everything that you purchase every single day. You know, we get up, we brush our teeth, we use Crest, we eat, we, you know, use all kinds of products in the house. We wash with Tide. Look at the labels on the back of on the back of things that you're purchasing all the time. Putting gas in your car, there's Exxon, things like that. So as far as what to invest in, you invest in whatever you're buying all the time anyway.
Yeah. I'll say
You can start there. That's one of the avenues. There's a lot out there, but that's one of the general avenues.
yeah, Sonja, you're right. You can pick, if you're going to do the stock market or invest in the stock market, just pick one or two stocks that you feel comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
BP or whatever it is you feel comfortable with every day, and just buy that for a long time and see how it goes.
Yeah, it goes.
All right. So will companies like Partners in Equity work with people if you purchase and live in Virginia?
Short answer is yes. They are looking to expand in Virginia. I did have the conversation with them after the show. We did, and they were excited about it. They invest in opportunity zones right now in North Carolina, looking to expand in Virginia and South Carolina. So I'll be happy to provide that information to you as well.
All right. I think this is a great last question. What are your thoughts on investing in cryptocurrency?
So I'll say this is the what you're gonna get from most financial advisors who actually have licenses through FINRA and SEC, is that we're not supposed to really comment on cryptocurrency. But I'll say it this way. You need to be careful in it's a speculative investment, meaning that it's more than even speculative, actually. It is not, it's unregulated. And so there's a lot of reason to be very cautious in putting all your money into cryptocurrency. So you want to be very, very careful because it's not regulated. And so you want to do your research on it. You want to, like I said, just be very careful with how you're investing and where you're investing. I'm going to add to that in the African American community. I actually saw a surge in a lot of folks talking about cryptocurrency, especially in the African American community. That kind of gives me pause lots of times, because I think that in many ways, folks want a quick fix, a quick, I'm going to put $100 in here this today, and I'm going to have $100,000 next month. Any investment like that is normally not a legal investment, and somebody's going to end up getting hurt. But we tend to gravitate to making this quick money, this fast money overnight, and it just does not happen on long term. So once again, do your homework. It is in its infancy stages, and it's unregulated, and so buyer beware.
Yeah, I agree. I would say follow Congress.
Mm-hmm.
Read whatever regulation. They have an oversight committee right now looking into more cryptocurrency and digital currency. Follow them, see what they're talking about. Because believe me, if there's money to be made, they're going to have their eyes on it because they want to tax it. And so
Absolutely.
you know what I mean? So you got to really follow them. And really, I think one of the things, even though it's a very delicate situation with cryptocurrency, I think it got some Black folk excited about money. I mean, even though it may have been a gamble in some of it, blockchain. I mean, that was a big thing. And I bought shares of it, made money of it, knew when to get out of it.
Right.
But, it got people excited about investing in the stock market and potentially making some money based on what this was. But you got to be very, very careful, as Sonja says. And I would definitely follow Congress in terms of what they're doing right now. And
right.
It's pretty interesting.
Don't put your rent money in it. I can say
no, don't do that.
No matter what money you put in it, do your homework.
Do your homework.
Do your homework.
Right. Well, I think that's it. We've covered all the questions. Any final thoughts?
This has been great. I love that folks are very excited about building wealth, and I'm encouraged to fill some gaps in. I think, Gerry, you see there are some gaps, of course, in building wealth. And so we got a lot of work to do. And so I'd encourage everyone to just continue to seek out their knowledge and make sure, do not be afraid to ask questions. There's no dumb question whatsoever. And to make sure that we are really paying attention and focusing on our money and how we need to make sure we're investing back into ourselves by buying other companies up. And that's exactly what investing is. You're just buying other company stocks and you're owning and ownership, as well as building the passive income, building businesses. And we need to do it all.
Exactly.
We have to be able to focus on doing some of all of it in order to balance it out.
Exactly. I want to say I've enjoyed having this conversation with you, Sonja, and having Angela moderate the panel, and thank the Chesapeake, Virginia Beach Delta Alumni Chapter. I thought this was great, and we need to do more of this so people will be aware, and we'll have more conversations and take the fear out of money and investing. I mean, this is what we do every day, so we need to take this on the road.
Yep,
that's right.
I agree.
Let's keep the conversation going, definitely.
Exactly.
So you'll be hearing more from us.
Yes.
All right. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right.